Right, we're just going to carry on this mini series I'm doing called Ripping, Tearing, Shredding. Now, I'm having lots of fun with this. It's a great technique. Since we did the face ripping a year ago, and then a few weeks ago the American football with the leather ripping off, I thought, right, time for number 3. And I'm going to do a little mini series of these, a little bit like a film franchise. 1, 2, 3, who knows what will be next. So I've got some good comments on this technique, so I will continue to do this. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It's a great technique using the new cloth system. So yeah, this is the kind of thing we're gonna achieve. Now in this video for YouTube, I'm not going to go into the full video because it could take an hour. If you want a bigger version of this video, there is a link below here to my Gumroad, which has this scene file with all of the textures and all of the mods to this character, all in a scene file below. Loads of like videos and stills and things that you can grab as well, and a longer tutorial. So if you want that, it's below. I think it's about $4 at the moment. Very cheap for this amount of work and this file. But if you want to do the free one, that's what we're going to do today. And we're just going to do a kind of a more simplified version without all of the lighting and textures and things like that. But we're just going to do the technique of the ripping and the tearing and how that effect works. So if we go to this file here, I've already got this Mixamo character, so you know, feel free to hop along to Mixamo and download these characters. This one is running kind of slow and then builds up speed and then goes faster and faster towards the end, like that. So that's the kind of effect I was after, just kind of a slow start, picking up speed, and then the effect can then intensify towards the end. Right, so what do we do? How do we get that kind of look? So at the moment, if we have a look up here, I've just grouped this into a null called robot, but we've got the animated part, which we don't need to touch, and then we've got the alpha surface, and if I turn that off, you'll see that's that outer skin, and then if I turn off the joints, you'll see that there are these kind of little ball joints that fit between the character. Right, so we've got those already. What we want to do is create another skin off this alpha surface, right? So if we just do a control and drag, and we'll copy that. Let's just call that skin, just so we don't get confused. Right, that has this skin tag on it, but we don't need that because we're going to turn this to cloth and it's going to kind of sit over the surface. So what we do, we just make sure we go back to the beginning on the timeline, and we click on the skin and we right click and connect and delete. Okay, so what that does is it bakes that kind of position that's in now. So obviously if we start to run this character, as you can see, the other version we've just created, skin, stays where it is. Okay, if we just turn off, if we take the skin out there, turn off the null, you'll see that is our skin one that we've just created. So if we run the animation, obviously that's not moving because it's just a mesh. It doesn't have any skin tag connected to the Mixamo hip, these like IK splines and cinematics. It doesn't have any of that. It just is a skin. Okay, and that's exactly what we need. We don't need it to be any more than that. So what we do is we drop that. Let's just drop that back into there. Let's actually put it above. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a cloth tag on the skin. Yeah, there we go. That's back to the beginning. Right, so we put a cloth tag on the skin. Right click, simulation cloth, and on the surface we're going to put a collider. Now, before we go any further, let's just make sure we get these surfaces, these collider sides right, because this can make or break how this looks and how it reacts with your computer, and it could crash it if you get this wrong. So on the surface, that is underneath, okay, and the skin layer goes on the top. So underneath the collider, we want that to collide with the front of this underneath piece, and the skin, if we go to the cloth and go to surface, we want this to collide on the back Okay, so it's the front of the underside bit and the back of the skin. So those two then connect. If we had it on both or on front, it would try to connect to the wrong part. So make sure that it's back and front so these two connect correctly. Right, let's have a look. We can just put, let's just put some simple colors in here just so we can see the difference between these two things. So if we put a, let's think which one. Yes, just put a red on the surface, right? And then on the skin, let's just put the black. Just so we've got two different surfaces going on here. The joints we don't need to worry. Just leave those as they are. I'm just really just showing you the technique of how this works. So what we need to do on the skin is we've got this thicken feature in here now. This tag, it's really good. So if we just click on Alt, what we can do here, though, obviously that's too big, is we want to bring this thickness down to say about 0.2. And what that's going to do is it's going to add this really nice thickness. When this thing starts to break up, it's going to add a thickness to this material, you know, this like metal material that's on the outside. So how do we do this? Let's just get this sorted out. Right, so we have the alpha surface, which is underneath. This is going to collide with it and stick to it as it moves. So at the moment, if we try and press play, let's just see what we get. Okay, it looks like it's all kind of getting confused, but it's not. If you press stop, it actually sorts itself out. So what's happened is the outer skin, which is the black bit, is now colliding, because we put back, with the alpha surface, which is the red layer, because we put a collider on that to say front, didn't we? So those two now are colliding. Okay, so you just let that play through, and then when you press stop, it always jumps back and collides over. Now the reason the fingers are missing is because it's starting to fall away. It's breaking up because it's cloth and it's not attached to anything, it's just falling. Okay, now on here it's clinging to what it can cling to, because we have a collider tag on there, so it's kind of trying to kind of stick to it. So what we want to do is we want to get some forces in here, and we want to put some tearing effect on here as well, and then vertex maps so we can decide where it tears. So what we do then on the skin layer, not on the thickened bit, but on where it says skin, if we right click and say vertex map, we get this red map. Right, let's go to display and turn on ground shading with lines. Right, let's turn off the alpha layer visibly so we don't see it, and also alpha joints so we only see, and also let's just turn off thicken for now. So all we'll have is the layer that's going to tear. So if we click back on vertex color, what we need to do now is we just need to draw on where we want this to tear. Now if you look in my original, we have got, let's have a look at the alpha channel on here for you. We have got, let's just go back to the beginning. We've got these areas defined here. So we've got like the breastbone is split and down the arms, various ones across the head. I've done some patterns on just to kind of get this to split in some really nice ways. So that's the kind of thing we're going to do, just split these panels up that are on here. So this is how they are at the moment. Now the best way, which I've just shown you, to split this is to define some polygon selection areas on here. And I'll show you how you do that. If we click on skin and we go to this the polygon mode here, just so these are selectable, go to our selection tool, we can now select these polygons. So if you press U and L on the keyboard, it will be the loop selection tool. So we can make some nice selections on here. You know, if we press shift, we can shift and click, and we can say, right, there's our breastbone one, and that actually travels all the way round the character. Look, so that will split that down the middle. We could do the same on the head, or we could do some more interesting ones, which is what you saw on mine. So we could go and make sure you press shift each time, because it's going to select all of these. So we could have one there, and we could have one, say, somewhere up here, which comes through. Let's have a look. Let's try and get this to go. I want one that's loops round, just there, like that. Okay, so we've got like a loop one, and then we've got one that goes all the way around. We could have one going over the top. It would be quite nice to just do a couple over the top like that, look, so it can split down the middle and all around the edges. On the arms, let's do something like that, so it will just grab a few areas around there, probably the forearm as well. We could not have many. Let's just see if we can grab some. That's not so many kind of layer, you know. Oh, let's just go for that. It doesn't matter. It's going to randomly split this anyway. Okay, so let's now just grab one on the center here. Let's grab one on the pelvic area through there, so that comes away. Legs, yeah, let's put a few down the legs as well, like that. Maybe have some go this way actually. You know, they don't all have to go vertically down. They can be splitting horizontally around the character. Like on here, let's just put some on this arm. Let's put that one that way and one that way. So there's no precise science to this. It's just these are the areas that are going to tear. Okay, so that's all you're looking at. You're looking at how you want your character to tear. Okay, so just for me, it was just random. It was just picking patterns that were just going to be random, like that. You know, just you can play around with this and make these selections exactly how you want. But once you've selected all of those, what you then do is you right click, and we go to subdivide, and we go to this little wheel, this little settings at the end, and we wanted to say 2. So we want to double this, because this is going to be a seam, and this is going to look better the smaller the geometry is. The more detail, the more detail is going to be in the tearing system. So if we say OK to 2, it's now times all this up by 2, so it's added an extra like double the amount of polygons in that area. Right, now we've keep it selected, don't unselect it, and we now go up to the select tool and go down to store selection just here. That gives us this little triangle selection tag, this polygon selection tag. Right, we can use that now in the field. So if we go back to the vertex map, we can say use fields in the vertex map, and then take out freeze, and then we can drop in this polygon selection. Right, and if we click on it and we go down here to mode, we can say index, and if we click off this and they'll click back on it, you'll see that the vertex map, which is the yellow area, which, you know, the yellow is the active part of the vertex map and the red is the non-active, it's now taken that path, that polygon selection that we made, and it's used it in the vertex, you know, to create this area. So now we've got that, we can, it now starts to get more interesting, because we can use that to affect how the cloth tears. So if we go to the cloth tag, and on the surface here, look, we've got cloth tearing. So if we check that, we've got a place now to put in a map. So we need to drag that vertex map into there, and we need to look at what will tear and the amount of strength required. So I tend to bring these down to about 105 on the tear past. So it's not much over 100%. 100% it will tear instantly, so it's like another 5% on that, and then it will start to tear. So to make this work, we need to add some forces into here. Now it may just tear on its own, but I think we need to really get some forces running, you know, into this, because as this character is running and speeding up, the wind would increase, and obviously if this is a humanoid sci-fi kind of character, it could be very fast, couldn't it? So what we can do is go to simulate, go to forces, and we can add some turbulence in here, because that will start to really make these pieces look good as they come off the character. And let's also put wind into the scene. Now we want the wind to go like it's pointing, the way it's pointing now. Look, it's got a little arrow on the front. Let's just lift that up so I can really demonstrate this idea. So there's the character running, and there is the wind pointing at him. So if we click on here, wind speed is only 5 centimeters. We want this to be pretty big. Let's go like 800. And turbulence, let's go 100. And the other turbulence, let's just lift that up so it's in the middle of the character. Let's just go up about 50 or something, and then half that for scale. We can adjust these if they don't quite work. It just depends on what you've got going on and how you've got things set up to what these numbers will actually turn out to be. Okay, have we got there? Is there more to do? Right, so we've put the tearing on the cloth. Now we also need to activate soft body, because if we just leave it as cloth, it will kind of flap around like cloth and it won't look too much like metal panels. So on these humanoid characters, I wanted it to look a little bit more like metal, and it didn't move and flap around quite so much. So we pin that down a little bit with a soft body. So if we click on soft body, we take the softness down to 0, so we don't want it to be soft. And let's add, say, 20 poles into that. And let's just turn off all those poles. Now there's a tearing function here, but I find it starts to slow it up too much and we don't need to have 2 tearing systems. So we just stick to the one on the surface here. Right, so now we've done that, let's just do a quick run of this. Now before we do, let's make sure we don't have too many things switched on, because it can slow this down before caching it. We just want to just do a quick run before we do the cache. So on the thicken, shall we leave that switched off? Let's turn on the alpha and the joint, so we've got those 2 to play with, and let's see what we get. Now if it does crash, if you do this and you've got too many collisions, the best advice would be to switch or turn off cinema unless it crashes and you have to turn it off. Then just do a reboot of your computer and make sure you've got a nice clean version open with no cache issues or anything like that, and then it should run okay. Right, let's see, are we ready to try? Yeah, let's just give this a go and see what happens. It may, like I say, it may slow down, it may crash a little bit. We'll see what happens. Aha, right then, so we're starting to see some tearing, some ripping stuff happening. If I just pause that there, and I want to just highlight the vertex map, because I want to show you what is happening here. These are the areas that we've highlighted that use this polygon selection. And if you have a look closely here, you'll see that the ripping is going to take place on these seams. Okay, so I'll just let that play and just leave that vertex map active so you can see what's happening. And as you see that, and this will be a gradual thing because the wind will blow against this and it will, but that's really starting to look pretty nice, I think there. Look, let's just pause that and have a look at what's happening elsewhere. So yeah, the armlet, it's all tearing. So if we just come out of that, you'll see that is the kind of thing that's going to happen. Yeah, and one thing we haven't done. It's one thing we haven't done, which is never going to look right unless we do this. Control D. Let's turn off the gravity and the seam. Okay, let's zero out the gravity, because what's happening is it's all just dropping straight through the floor there. Okay, and we want this to kind of hover and be buffeted around behind the character, and you know, it just looks really good. It looks really good in the final render when you've got all the pieces kind of flying off. So let's just try that again with no gravity in the scene. This is a slow process, but as soon as you cache it, this will start to, you know, obviously run very, very quickly. Then you can start looking at lighting and textures and all different things in your scene after that. But just to get this build to work, let's just see what we're doing with the gravity now. I want these pieces that break away from the character as he starts to run quicker. And we can always mess with the speed of the wind as well. You know, it's quite a nice effect to say he's jogging, let's have the wind really slow, and then as it builds through the scene towards the end, what we've got here, 236 frames, towards the end there you can have the wind really strong because he's running harder, so the wind will be blowing faster. So yeah, you can play around with keyframing the wind strength you know, from say 100 up to like 1,000 or something crazy like that, then you'll start to get some really big destruction here. But I really do like this. Yeah, and there we go. That we're getting the pieces are shredding off, and they're now blowing backwards because the wind's blowing them backwards, and there's no gravity in the scene that's pulling these pieces down. So they're all going to kind of fly out the back. Look at that. I mean, what an amazing effect this is going to give us. Okay, splitting through there. Now obviously in my version I did before, had all sorts of nice textures and lighting in here. So if you want the full version of this, how I managed to get this character set up and all the lighting and all the textures that I used, then it's below this video in a link. This file, sorry, not this file, the original scene file that I did is below, with a load of videos that you can look at for a very small fee. Up to you. Have a go. Just, you know, use Mixamo, get some characters. They don't have to be running, they could be doing all sorts of movements in forces. Use wind and turbulence and start to get this cloth to rip in really interesting ways. And because of Vertex maps, and we can use selections, we can get things to rip in some really nice ways now. The cloth system is incredible. There's so much to do with this. I'm going to do more of these for ripping, tearing and shredding. So there'll be 3 which we're on now. I'm probably going to do at least another 2, maybe more, depends what comments we get on these, whether I'm going to keep doing these. So I hope that was okay. I hope you've understood that. If not, please leave me comments below if you want any more advice. If not, these files are below, then go and grab those. My name is Mike German from Visual Animation. Take care, see you very soon. Goodbye for now.